The door creaked open at midnight, and I froze, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. My sister's boyfriend, Ethan, stood there, his silhouette sharp against the hallway's dim glow, eyes wild with something I couldn't name. I should have yelled, told him to get out. But his trembling voice stopped me cold. Caleb, I need to tell you something, and it's going to ruin everything. I was 16, a junior in high school, living in a sleepy Ohio suburb where secrets were currency and trust was rare. My room was my sanctuary, posters of indie bands plastered on the walls, a desk littered with half-read books, and a journal I'd never let anyone touch. Ethan, my sister Mia's boyfriend of 2 years, had no business being here, especially not after the screaming match I'd overheard downstairs an hour ago. Mia's voice had been a razor, cutting through the house. You're lying to me. Ethan, I know you are. I'd stayed out of it, like always. Mia, 2 years older and bound for college, was a force of nature, beautiful, fierce, and fiercely straight. Ethan, with his easy smile and quarterback charm, was her perfect match. Or so I thought. He stepped inside, closing the door softly, his sneakers silent on the hardwood. I didn't know where else to go, he whispered, his voice cracking. I sat up in bed, pulling the blanket tighter around me, suddenly aware of how small my room felt with him in it. Ethan was everything I wasn't: tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of guy who walked into a room and owned it. Me, I was the quiet kid who sketched in the margins of my notebooks and avoided eye contact in the cafeteria. What do you want, Ethan? My voice came out sharper than I meant, but I was scared. Not of him, but of whatever this was. He ran a hand through his dark hair, pacing like a caged animal. I can't keep doing this, he said, more to himself than to me. I can't keep lying to her. To everyone. I frowned, my stomach twisting. Lying about what? He stopped pacing, his eyes locking onto mine. They were green, brighter than I'd ever noticed, and they held a storm I didn't understand. Caleb, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm not who you think I am. I'm not straight. The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. I stared at him, my mind racing to catch up. Ethan, the golden boy, the guy who'd been dating my sister since sophomore year, was standing in my room, confessing something that could tear our world apart. I didn't know what to say, but my heart was pounding for a different reason now. Because deep down, in a place I'd never dared to look, I'd been hiding the same secret. Ethan sank onto the edge of my desk, his shoulders slumped like he was carrying the weight of the world. I've known for a while, he said, staring at the floor. Since I was 14. Maybe earlier. I tried to ignore it. You know. Thought if I just kept dating girls, kept being the guy everyone expected, it'd go away. But it doesn't work like that. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I wanted to tell him I got it, that I'd spent nights staring at my ceiling, wondering why I couldn't just be like everyone else. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. Why are you telling me this? I asked instead, my voice barely steady. Because you're the only one who might understand, he said, looking up. His eyes were raw, unguarded, like he'd stripped away every layer he'd built to survive in this town. I see the way you are, Caleb. The way you keep to yourself. The way you look at people, like you're hiding something too. My face burned, and I looked away, clutching the blanket tighter. He wasn't wrong, but hearing it out loud felt like a violation. I'd spent years building walls, keeping my feelings locked in that journal on my desk. I wasn't ready for someone to see through me, especially not Ethan. I don't know what you're talking about. I lied, but my voice shook, betraying me. He let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, you do. But it's okay. I'm not here to push you. I needed to say it to someone. And Mia, his voice broke, and he buried his face in his hands. She knows something's off. That's why we fought. She thinks I'm cheating. But it's not that. It's this. It's me. I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him it was okay, that he wasn't alone. But another part was angry that he'd dragged me into this. Angry that he'd seen something in me I wasn't ready to admit. You need to tell her, I said finally, my voice flat. She deserves to know. I know, he said, his voice muffled. But what if she hates me? What if everyone does? I didn't have an answer for that. In our town, being different wasn't just hard, it was dangerous. I'd seen what happened to kids who didn't fit in. Whispers in the halls. Notes slipped into lockers. Fists in the parking lot after school. I kept my head down to avoid it. But Ethan, he was the star of the football team. If he came out, it wouldn't just be whispers. It'd be a wildfire. Does anyone else know? I asked, my curiosity getting the better of me. He shook his head. Just you. And I'm trusting you. Caleb. Please, don't tell anyone. I nodded, but the weight of his secret settled on me like a stone. I didn't want this responsibility, but I couldn't unhear what he'd said. And as he stood to leave, his hand brushing the journal on my desk, I felt a spark of something dangerous: connection, understanding, maybe even hope. But hope was a risky thing in a town like ours, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face what it might mean. The next morning, the house was a minefield. Mia was slamming cabinets in the kitchen, her anger a tangible force that made the air feel heavy. I slipped downstairs, hoping to grab a coffee and escape before she noticed me. But her eyes locked onto mine the second I entered. Did you hear us last night? She demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I froze, the memory of Ethan's confession burning in my mind. Yeah, I mumbled, pouring coffee with shaky hands. Hard not to. She crossed her arms, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, her face pale with exhaustion. He's hiding something. Caleb. I know it. 2 years. And now he's acting like a stranger. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the hurt beneath her anger. Mia wasn't just mad, she was scared of losing him. I wanted to tell her the truth, to ease the pain in her eyes. But Ethan's plea echoed in my head, don't tell anyone. So I just nodded, muttering something about how maybe they'd work it out. She didn't buy it, but she let me go, her attention shifting back to her phone, where she was probably texting her friends for advice. School was no better. Ethan avoided me in the halls, his head down, his usual swagger gone. I caught glimpses of him between classes, surrounded by his teammates, but looking like he was a million miles away. I wanted to talk to him, to ask what he was going to do, but I didn't know how to approach him without drawing attention. In a school where everyone knew everyone's business, a conversation between the quarterback and the art kid would raise eyebrows. By lunch, I was a mess of nerves, hiding in the library with my sketchbook. I was drawing without thinking, my pencil scratching out sharp lines that turned into Ethan's face, his jaw, his eyes, the way his hair fell over his forehead. I slammed the book shut, my heart racing. What was wrong with me? I'd spent years ignoring the way my pulse jumped around certain guys, convincing myself it was nothing. But Ethan's confession had cracked something open inside me, and I wasn't sure how to close it again. That afternoon, I found a note slipped into my locker. No name, just a scrawled message. Meet me at the old oak behind the field after practice. My stomach flipped. The oak was a secluded spot, hidden by a line of trees where kids went to smoke or make out. No one would see us there, but that didn't make it less risky. I spent the rest of the day debating whether to go, my mind a tug-of-war between curiosity and fear. I went. The sun was setting when I got there, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ethan was already waiting, leaning against the gnarled trunk, his football gear still on, grass stains smudging his jersey. He looked up as I approached, and for a second, his face softened, like he was relieved I'd shown up. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice low. "I wasn't sure you would." I almost didn't, I admitted, shoving my hands in my pockets. "What do you want, Ethan?" He glanced around, making sure we were alone, then stepped closer. Too close. I could smell the sweat and grass on him, and it made my head spin. "I need to figure this out," he said. "I can't keep pretending with Mia, but I don't know how to tell her. And I don't know how to be this person, the real me." I swallowed, my mouth dry. Why me? Why not talk to a friend or, I don't know, a counselor? "Because you get it," he said, his eyes searching mine. "I know you do, Caleb. I've seen the way you look at me." My face went hot, and I stepped back, my sneakers crunching on the fallen leaves. "You're wrong," I said, but the lie felt weak, even to me. He didn't push, just watched me with those green eyes that seemed to see too much. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said softly. I feel like I'm drowning, and you're the only one who might know what it's like." I wanted to run. I wanted to tell him to leave me alone, to take his secret and his pain somewhere else. But I didn't. Because he was right, I didn't know what it was like. The fear, the hiding, the constant weight of pretending to be someone you weren't. And standing there, with the sunset burning behind him, I felt something shift. For the first time, I wasn't alone in it. "Okay," I said finally, my voice barely audible. "I'll help you. But we have to be careful." He nodded, a flicker of hope crossing his face. "Deal." As I walked home, the weight of his secret felt heavier, but so did the strange warmth in my chest. I was in over my head, and I knew it. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure I wanted to turn back. The next week was a blur of stolen glances and whispered conversations. Ethan and I met at the oak tree twice more, always after practice when the field was empty and the world felt like it belonged to just us. We didn't talk about anything big, not his confession, not my own unspoken truth, just small things, like music or movies or the pressure of living up to everyone's expectations. But those moments, brief as they were, felt like oxygen after years of holding my breath. At home, Mia was a storm cloud. She and Ethan were still together, but their fights were louder, more frequent. I'd hear her crying in her room at night, and it tore me apart. I wanted to fix it, to tell her everything. But Ethan's trust was a fragile thing, and I couldn't break it. Not yet. One night, I was sketching in my room when my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Can we talk now?" My heart skipped. It was late, past 10, and Mia was still awake. her music blasting through the wall. I texted back, "Where?" His reply came instantly, "Your window." I hesitated, then slid the window open, the cool night air rushing in. Ethan was there, crouched on the roof outside, his face pale in the moonlight. "You're insane," I hissed, but I helped him climb in, my hands brushing his for a second too long. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I broke up with her," he said, sitting on the floor, his back against my bed. "Tonight. It's over." I sat across from him, my knees pulled to my chest. "What happened?" He ran a hand over his face. Exhausted. She kept pushing, asking what was wrong. I couldn't lie anymore. I didn't tell her everything, but I told her I wasn't in love with her. She threw her phone at me and told me to get out. My stomach twisted. Mia was my sister, my best friend in so many ways, and I hated that she was hurting. But I also felt a strange relief, like a knot in my chest had loosened. "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "It's not your fault," he said, his voice soft. "It's mine. I should have been honest from the start. But I was scared. You know, of losing her, of losing everything." I nodded, my own fear mirrored in his words. "What now?" He looked at me, his eyes steady. "I don't know, but I want to figure it out. And I want you to be part of it." My breath caught. He wasn't saying what I thought he was. Was he? But the way he looked at me, the way his voice dropped, said more than his words. I wanted to ask what he meant, to push for clarity, but fear stopped me. Instead, I changed the subject. "You need to talk to her again. Be honest. She deserves that." He nodded, but his gaze lingered on me, heavy with something unspoken. When he left, climbing back out the window, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. One step, and I'd fall. The next day at school, Mia was a ghost. She didn't show up to class, and her friends were whispering, casting glances my way. I avoided Ethan, but he found me in the library at lunch, his face drawn. "She's telling people I cheated," he said, his voice low. "Not with you, but someone. It's spreading." I cursed under my breath. Rumors in our school were like gasoline one spark, and they'd burn everything down. "You need to set it straight," I said. "Tell her the truth." "I can't," he said, his voice breaking. "Not yet. If I come out now, with everyone already talking, it'll be a disaster." I wanted to argue, but I saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear I felt every day. So I just nodded, promising to keep his secret a little longer. But as he walked away, I knew we were running out of time. The truth was a ticking bomb, and it was only a matter of when, not if, it would explode. The rumors spread like wildfire. By the end of the week, the whole school was buzzing with stories about Ethan's supposed affair. Some said it was a cheerleader, others a girl from a rival school. Mia didn't help. She was telling anyone who'd listen that Ethan had broken her heart, and her pain was so raw it made people believe her. I wanted to defend him, but every time I opened my mouth, I remembered his plea, "Don't tell anyone." At home, Mia was a wreck. She barely spoke to me, her eyes red from crying, her anger a wall I couldn't breach. I tried to talk to her, to ask what happened, but she shut me down. "You wouldn't understand, Caleb," she snapped one night, slamming her bedroom door. I stood there, guilt gnawing at me. I was caught between loyalty to her and the promise I'd made to Ethan. Ethan, meanwhile, was unraveling. He was still the star quarterback, still smiling for the crowd, but I could see the cracks. During our meetings at the oak tree, he was quieter, his jokes forced, his eyes distant. I'm losing it, he admitted one evening, the air crisp with the first hint of fall. I don't know how to fix this without ruining everything. You can't keep hiding, I said, my voice sharper than I meant. It's killing you. And it's killing her. He looked at me, his expression torn. I know. But what if I tell her? And she hates me? What if the team, my friends, my family, what if they all turn on me? I didn't have an answer. I'd been asking myself the same questions for years. Ever since I realized I wasn't like the other guys in gym class, laughing about girls and crushes. I'd buried those feelings, locked them in my journal. But Ethan's confession had brought them roaring to the surface. And now, sitting across from him, I felt something new: anger. Not at him, but at the world that made us feel like we had to hide. Then you find people who won't, I said finally. People who'll accept you. They're out there. Ethan, you just have to trust them. He looked at me, his eyes softening. Like you. My heart stopped. The air between us felt charged, like the moment before a storm. I wanted to say yes, to tell him I was starting to feel something I couldn't name, but fear clamped my mouth shut. Instead, I nodded, hoping he'd understand. He did. He reached out, his hand brushing mine, and for a second, I let myself feel the warmth, the connection, the possibility. But then I pulled away, my mind screaming that this was dangerous, that we were playing with fire. I should go, I said, standing abruptly. He didn't stop me, but his eyes followed me as I walked away, and I felt them on my back long after I'd left the field. That night, I couldn't sleep. My journal was open on my desk, pages filled with sketches of Ethan, words I'd never dare say out loud. I was falling for him, and it terrified me. He was my sister's ex, the town's golden boy, and he was carrying a secret that could destroy us both. But the more I tried to push it away, the stronger it grew, like a tide I couldn't fight. The next day, everything changed. I was in the cafeteria when Mia stormed in, her face a mask of fury. She marched straight to Ethan's table, where he was sitting with his teammates, and threw a piece of paper in his face. Explain this, she shouted, her voice echoing through the room. The paper was a screenshot of a text conversation, one I recognized immediately. It was from Ethan to me, from the night he'd climbed through my window. I need to figure this out, and I want you to be part of it. My stomach dropped. Someone had seen it. Someone had told her. Ethan's face went white, and the cafeteria fell silent, every eye on them. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor. But Mia's gaze found me across the room. Caleb, she said, her voice shaking. What the hell is going on? The cafeteria felt like a courtroom, and I was on trial. Mia stood there, clutching the screenshot, her eyes boring into mine. Ethan was frozen, his teammates staring at him like he'd grown a second head. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Caleb, Mia repeated, her voice breaking. Tell me this isn't what it looks like. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The truth was a weight I couldn't lift. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Ethan stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Mia, let's talk outside, he said, his voice steady but strained. She didn't budge. No. You don't get to control this anymore. What's going on between you and my brother? The word brother hit like a slap, and I saw the confusion on Ethan's teammates' faces turn to suspicion. Whispers started, low and venomous, spreading through the crowd. I felt my face burn, my hands shaking as I gripped the edge of my table. It's not what you think, I managed, my voice barely audible. Then what is it? She snapped, tears spilling down her cheeks. Because it looks like you're sneaking around behind my back. Ethan stepped forward, his hands raised like he was trying to calm a wild animal. Mia, please. It's not about Caleb. It's about me. I need to tell you something, but not here. She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You're unbelievable. Both of you. She turned and stormed out, leaving the screenshot crumpled on the floor. The cafeteria erupted into chaos. Voices overlapping as people speculated, laughed, judged. I grabbed my bag and bolted, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I found Mia in the parking lot, sitting in her car, her face buried in her hands. I hesitated, then tapped on the window. She looked up, her eyes red and furious. Go away, Caleb. I can't, I said, my voice shaking. I need to explain. She rolled down the window, her expression cold. Then explain. Why is my ex-boyfriend texting you in the middle of the night? I took a deep breath, the words I'd been hiding for years clawing their way up. Because he's struggling. Mia. He's not who you think he is. And neither am I. Her eyes widened. And for a moment, she just stared. What are you saying? I'm gay, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. And Ethan, he's figuring out who he is too. He didn't cheat on you. He's just scared. Like I am. The silence was deafening. Mia's face crumpled, and she shook her head, like she could make the words disappear. You're lying, she whispered. You're both lying. I'm not, I said, tears stinging my eyes. I've been hiding it forever because I didn't want to hurt you. Or anyone. But it's true. She didn't say anything, just rolled up the window and drove off, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot. I felt raw, exposed, like I'd ripped out my own heart and left it on the asphalt. But I also felt free, like a chain I'd been carrying had finally broken. When I got home, Ethan was waiting on my front porch, his face pale. She knows, he said, his voice hollow. Not everything, but she knows I'm hiding something big. And now she thinks we're together. My stomach twisted. Are we? The question slipped out before I could stop it, and I regretted it instantly. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. I don't know. Caleb. I want to be honest. With her. With you. With myself. But I'm not sure I'm ready for what that means. I nodded, my throat tight. Me neither. But we can't keep running from it. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm. And for a moment, I thought he might kiss me. But then he pulled back, his expression torn. I need time, he said. And I need to talk to her. For real this time. I watched him walk away, my heart a mess of hope and fear. I told Mia the truth, but it had cost me something I wasn't sure I could get back. And now, with Ethan's secret teetering on the edge of exposure, I knew things were about to get worse. The fallout was brutal. By Monday, the rumors had mutated into something uglier. People weren't just whispering about Ethan's supposed affair, they were saying he was gay. that he'd been using Mia as a cover. Some kids were cruel, leaving notes in his locker with slurs I couldn't stomach reading. Others were just curious, their stares following him like vultures circling a wounded animal. Ethan kept his head down, but I could see the toll it was taking. His smile was gone, replaced by a grim determination to get through each day. Mia wasn't at school. She'd texted me that she was staying with a friend, that she needed space. I didn't push, but the silence between us was a wound that wouldn't heal. I missed her laugh, her teasing, the way she'd barge into my room to steal my headphones. Now, she felt like a stranger, and I hated myself for it. I found Ethan after practice, sitting alone on the bleachers, staring at the empty field. I sat beside him, the metal cold against my legs. "You okay?" I asked, knowing the answer. "No," he said, his voice rough. "I talked to Mia last night. Told her everything. She didn't take it well." My heart sank. "What did she say?" "She called me a liar. Said I'd wasted 2 years of her life. She asked if I was in love with you." He glanced at me, his eyes raw. I didn't know what to say. I swallowed, my pulse racing. "What do you feel, Ethan?" He was quiet for a long time, his hands clasped tightly between his knees. "I don't know," he said finally. "I like you, Caleb. More than I should. But I'm scared. And I'm confused. And I don't want to hurt anyone else." His words were a knife, sharp and sweet. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him I felt the same. But the weight of everything school, Mia, the town held me back. "We can't do this now," I said, my voice barely steady. "Not with everything falling apart." "I know," he said, but his hand found mine, his fingers lacing through mine for a fleeting moment before he let go. "But I don't want to lose you." I didn't know how to respond, so I just sat there, the silence heavy with everything we weren't saying. When he left, I stayed on the bleachers, watching the stars come out, wondering how we'd gotten here. The next day, things got worse. Someone had spray-painted a slur on Ethan's locker, bright red letters that burned into my vision. He stood in front of it, his jaw tight, his teammates nowhere to be found. I wanted to stand beside him, to tell everyone to back off. But I was still the quiet kid, the one who hid in the shadows. So I just watched, hating myself for my cowardice. That night, I found a note under my door. "Mia's handwriting, we need to talk. Come to my room." My stomach churned as I knocked on her door, bracing for the worst. She was sitting on her bed, her eyes swollen but calm. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft, "for shutting you out. I was just so angry." I sat beside her, my heart in my throat. "I'm sorry too. I didn't want to hurt you." She nodded, tears spilling over. "I know. And I know about you now. I wish you'd told me sooner. I wish we didn't have to go through this." "Me too," I said, my voice breaking. But I was scared. She reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. "I love you, Caleb. No matter what. But I need time to process this. And Ethan, I don't know if I can forgive him." I nodded, tears burning my eyes. For the first time in days, I felt like I had my sister back, even if it was just a piece of her. But as I left her room, I knew the hardest part was still coming. Ethan's secret was out, and the town wasn't going to let it go quietly. The town turned on Ethan like a pack of wolves. By the end of the week, The slurs on his locker had multiplied, and his teammates were icing him out. Their loyalty replaced by suspicion. He still showed up to practice, still ran the plays, but the joy was gone. I watched him from the sidelines, sketching in my notebook, my heart aching for the boy who'd once lit up every room. I wasn't doing much better. Coming out to Mia had been a relief, but it hadn't erased the fear. Kids at school were starting to whisper about me too, their eyes following me in the halls. I kept my head down, but the weight of their stares was suffocating. I wanted to be brave, to stand up for Ethan, for myself. But every time I tried, my voice caught in my throat. One night, Ethan showed up at my window again, his face bruised and his knuckles scraped. "What happened?" I asked, pulling him inside, my hands shaking as I checked him over. "Some guys from the team," he said, his voice flat. "They cornered me after practice. Said I was a disgrace to the team." Rage burned through me, hot and fierce. "Who?" You'll what?" "Caleb." He interrupted, his eyes tired. "Fight them. Tell the coach. It won't change anything. This town, it's not ready for people like us." "Then we make it ready," I said, surprising myself with the force of my words. "We can't keep hiding. Ethan. Not anymore." He looked at me, his expression a mix of hope and fear. "You really believe that?" "I have to," I said, my voice trembling. "Because if I don't, I'll lose myself. And I don't want to lose you too." For a moment, we just stared at each other, the air thick with everything we'd been too scared to say. Then he leaned forward, his lips brushing mine, soft and tentative. It was my first kiss, and it felt like the world was breaking open, like every fear I'd ever had was burning away in the heat of that moment. When we pulled apart, he was smiling, a real smile for the first time in weeks. "I don't know what this is," he said, his voice low, "but I want to find out. With you." I nodded, my heart pounding. "Me too." The next day, we made a plan. Ethan would talk to the coach, tell him what was happening, and I'd go with him for support. It was risky. Coach Daniels was old school, and there was no guarantee he'd be on our side. But we had to try. For Ethan. For me. For the kids who'd come after us. The meeting was tense. Coach listened, his face unreadable, as Ethan explained everything, the rumors, the attack, the truth about who he was. I stood beside him, my hands clenched, ready to jump in if things went south. When Ethan finished, Coach was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "You're a good kid, Ethan, and a damn good player. This doesn't change that. But you're right, this town's not kind to people who are different. I can't promise it'll be easy, but I'll have your back." It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Ethan's shoulders relaxed, and I felt a spark of hope. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could be ourselves and survive. The weeks that followed were a slow climb. Ethan's teammates didn't all come around, but a few did, standing by him at practice, shutting down the worst of the rumors. The slurs on his locker stopped, replaced by a team captain's scrawled note, "We've got you." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Mia came home, and we started rebuilding. It wasn't easy. She was still hurt, still angry at Ethan, but she was trying. One night, she sat me down and apologized for shutting me out. "I was scared," she admitted. "Not of you, but of losing you. You're my brother, Caleb. I just want you to be happy." "I'm trying," I said, and I meant it. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. Like the person I was didn't have to stay locked in a journal. Ethan and I grew closer. Our moments stolen in quiet corners of the school or under the oak tree at dusk. We weren't ready to be open. Not fully. But we were learning to trust each other. To trust ourselves. Our first real date was at a diner outside town, where no one knew us. We shared a milkshake, laughed about nothing, and for a few hours, the world felt kind. But the real change came at the homecoming game. Ethan was starting quarterback, and the stands were packed. I was there, sitting with Mia, my heart in my throat as he took the field. The crowd was mixed, some cheered, some whispered, but he played like he was born for it, leading the team to a win that left the stands roaring. After the game, he found me outside the locker room, his face flushed with victory. "I want to do something," he said, his voice steady. "Something big." I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" He took my hand, right there in front of the crowd, and pulled me into the center of the field. The whispers started again, but he didn't care. He raised our joined hands, his voice carrying over the noise. "This is who I am," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And I'm not hiding anymore." The crowd went silent, then erupted, some in cheers, some in boos. But it didn't matter. Ethan looked at me, his eyes bright, and I knew I'd follow him anywhere. I wasn't ready to shout my truth to the world, but standing there, holding his hand, I felt like I could get there. One day, Mia was waiting for us after, her smile small but genuine. "You're brave," she told Ethan, then turned to me. "Both of you." The town didn't change overnight. There were still whispers, still stares, still moments of fear. But there were also moments of hope, teammates who stood up for Ethan, teachers who shut down bullies, kids who started to look at me like I wasn't invisible anymore. We were carving out a space, small but real, where we could be ourselves. That night, under the oak tree, Ethan kissed me again. And this time, I didn't pull away. "We're going to be okay," he said, his forehead against mine. "Yeah," I whispered, believing it for the first time. "We are." The road ahead would be hard, but we weren't alone. We had each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next. The secrets that had once torn us apart had become the truth that set us free. And in that truth, we found something worth fighting for: love, acceptance, and the chance to be whole.